I wasn't supposed to be working late that day, but my manager had dumped a last-minute report on my desk and asked if I could send it out before the end of the night. It was already past 8 p.m., the office was quiet, and most of the lights were off except for the emergency ones and the few flickering fluorescents that never seemed to get fixed. I was the only one left on my floor. While I was wrapping things up, I got a notification, an Excel file sent to my email from an internal address I didn't recognize. The subject line just said Q4 Overview Confidential. I assumed it was a financial document, maybe sent to the wrong department. I almost deleted it without looking, but I was curious. So I downloaded it. The file looked normal at first, rows and columns, the usual. But when I started scrolling, I realized it wasn't about sales or budget forecasts. It had names, dozens of them, people I knew from the company. Each row had their full name, ID number, department, and then stuff that made no sense to be there. Personal stuff. Under a column labeled Notes, there were things like experiencing marital problems, saw therapist twice this month, hasn't disclosed criminal record, expressed suicidal thoughts to supervisor. I thought maybe it was fake or some kind of test file, but the details were too specific. I knew one of the guys mentioned in the sheet, Jeff from IT, and it said he was being monitored for unauthorized system access. He'd been acting nervous lately. I just stared at the screen for a while, trying to make sense of why any of this would exist. At first, I thought maybe it was something HR put together, like a private record or internal risk assessment. But then I noticed there wasn't just one tab in the spreadsheet, there were 7, each labeled with a vague title like Observation A, Pending, Escalated, and so on. When I clicked into the second tab, my stomach dropped. My own name was there. Full name, employee number, even the address I moved to just a month ago, something I hadn't updated in any system yet. Under behavioral notes, it said, spends time alone in office after hours. Possible indicators of information hoarding. Monitor interactions. Low social engagement. I felt this weird wave of heat run through my body. It didn't just feel invasive. It felt like someone had been watching me closely for a while. I backed out of that tab and clicked through the rest. There were over 200 employees listed in total, and I swear at least a quarter of them had some kind of red highlight in their row. Escalation advised. Flagged for external observation. No further contact without clearance. And these weren't just regular notes. Some of them were straight up disturbing. One entry said, subject unaware of siblings incident, do not initiate disclosure protocol. Another had GPS coordinates listed next to a timestamp. It was like this wasn't just HR data. It was something else entirely. Something darker. I remember my hands were sweating so much I almost dropped the mouse. I was scared, and I didn't even know what exactly I was scared of yet. I tried to forward the email to my personal account, thinking maybe I could look into it more from home. But the system blocked it immediately with a message I'd never seen before. Restricted internal document. Unauthorized external transmission flagged. I didn't even know our email had that kind of filter. That's when I started feeling like I'd crossed a line I didn't even know was there. I unplugged my USB drive and transferred the file to it, but even that made me nervous. It felt like I wasn't supposed to have this. Not in a company secrets way, more like whatever this was, I wasn't meant to see it. I couldn't shake the feeling that if someone knew I opened that file, there'd be consequences. Right then, the lights on the floor flickered hard. Not like a normal power surge, like they were reacting to something. I glanced around and realized the automatic lights that usually turned off when no one was around had all come back on, as if someone else had just walked in. But I was alone. At least I thought I was. I got up and peeked down the hallway, and I swear I saw the silhouette of someone standing near the break room at the end, just past the copy machines. But when I blinked, it was gone. Just gone. I stood there frozen for a few seconds, heart pounding, trying to decide if I was imagining things or if someone was really there watching me. I went back to my desk as quietly as I could, packed up my stuff fast, and ejected the USB drive. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped it. I kept looking over my shoulder like someone was about to come out from one of the meeting rooms. The office was still dead silent, but it didn't feel empty anymore. You know that feeling when you just know you're being watched? That's exactly what it was. I didn't even shut down my computer properly. I just yanked the power cord, grabbed my bag, and started walking toward the elevators. When I pressed the button, the doors didn't open right away like they usually do. I kept jabbing it, but it stayed shut. That's when I noticed the camera above the elevator blinking like it was recording. I didn't wait. I ran to the stairwell. I don't usually take the stairs. I work on the 11th floor, but there was no way I was waiting around to see what was going on. The stairwell lights were dim and buzzing, and each floor I passed made me more paranoid. Around the 7th floor, I swear I heard a door close above me, like someone else had entered the stairwell. I stopped and held my breath, listening. For a few seconds, nothing. Then, the faint sound of footsteps, not rushing, not trying to catch up. Just steady, controlled steps, like whoever it was knew exactly where I was and didn't need to rush. I didn't even look back. I bolted down the rest of the stairs, skipped the last few steps, and pushed through the exit door into the parking garage, completely out of breath. When I got to my car, I locked the doors immediately and just sat there for a moment, trying to calm down. My shirt was sticking to my back from sweat, and my mouth felt completely dry. I kept checking my rearview mirror like someone was going to appear behind me. Nothing ever did, but that didn't make me feel any better. I drove home way faster than I should have. Every time I stopped at a red light, I kept expecting a black SUV to pull up behind me or my phone to ring with a block number. None of that happened. But when I got home and opened the laptop, the file was gone from the USB. Completely wiped. Not corrupted, not unreadable, just gone like it had never been there. I checked the USB properties and it still showed used space, but no visible files. I tried recovery software, but it came up empty. The weirdest part? The email was gone too. Not just from my inbox, but from the entire server. It didn't show up in my sent folder, in my trash, or even in the log of recent files. Like it had been scrubbed clean. I even called a buddy from IT the next day, off the record, and asked if the company ever sends out test files or does internal security checks like that. He laughed and said no way, they'd never risk exposing that kind of data. When I asked if emails could be wiped remotely without a trace, he got real quiet and said, not unless someone really high up wanted it gone. The next few days were weird. No one at work mentioned anything. I kept waiting for someone from HR or security to call me into a meeting, or at least ask why I shut down my computer the way I did, but nothing came. People acted normal, too normal. Jeff from IT, the guy I saw listed in the file, didn't show up that week. No one talked about it. I asked around casually and someone just said he took some time off, but there was no out-of-office message, no handoff, nothing. And that break room where I thought I saw someone? It was under maintenance the next day, sign on the door, lights off. I don't know. Everything just felt off, like things had been quickly rearranged to cover something up. To this day, I don't know what that file really was or who it was meant for. I never saw the sender's email address again. I even tried reporting it anonymously to an external agency, but I never heard back. It's like the whole thing vanished with no trace, except in my memory. Sometimes I wonder if I was flagged just for opening it. If maybe I'm still being watched somehow. Nothing directly threatening ever happened after that night, but I still get this tight feeling in my chest every time I stay late at the office, like I'm not supposed to be there. Like I saw something I shouldn't have, and someone somewhere is just waiting to decide what to do about it. I don't really know how to start this, but I feel like I need to get it out. Maybe someone out there has gone through something similar. My boyfriend and I moved into this apartment about 6 months ago. It's not fancy or anything, just a small one-bedroom unit in a pretty quiet building. We're both in our 20s, trying to save money, so it seemed like a good fit. At first, everything was fine. The neighbors kept to themselves, and the building management seemed responsive whenever we needed anything. But a few weeks ago, we started noticing little things that felt off. Like, I'd leave a book on the coffee table, and later find it slightly moved. Or the bathroom light would be on when neither of us remembered turning it on. At first, I thought I was just being forgetful. I even joked with my boyfriend that maybe the apartment was haunted, just to laugh it off. But then he started noticing things too. One morning, he asked me if I'd used his razor. I hadn't. He said it looked like someone had moved it, and the sink had those tiny hair clippings like when you shave, but he swore he hadn't shaved in 2 days. We started paying more attention after that. One night, we placed a small piece of tape on the inside of our front door, just to see if it would get disturbed. The next day, it was peeled halfway off, even though we hadn't left the apartment. That's when it stopped being funny. We didn't want to jump to conclusions, so we thought maybe someone from maintenance came in and forgot to leave a notice. It's happened once before, about 2 months earlier, when they checked the fire alarms without really warning us. So I went down to the front office and asked if anyone had entered our unit. The woman at the desk checked some clipboard and told me no, there was no record of any entry. She looked kind of confused, even a little annoyed, like I was wasting her time. That alone made my stomach twist a bit. If nobody logged an entry, and we hadn't left the apartment, who the hell was messing with our stuff? That night we decided to set up one of my old webcams from college. We didn't have anything fancy, just a basic USB cam that records to a laptop. We aimed it toward the living room, where we'd noticed the most movement, and left it running while we went to work the next day. I couldn't concentrate the entire day. My chest felt tight, like I was waiting for something terrible, and didn't even know what. When we got home, we rushed to the laptop. I remember my hands were literally shaking as I opened the file. At first, nothing. Hours of empty silence. Then, around 2:17 p.m., the door opened. The video showed the door opening slowly, no knock, no announcement. A man in a navy blue shirt with the building's maintenance logo walked in like he owned the place. I recognized him immediately. It was the same guy who replaced our kitchen faucet a couple of months ago. Back then he seemed quiet, barely talked, just did the job and left. But in the video, he didn't go near the kitchen or anything that looked like an inspection. He walked straight to our bedroom. He stayed in there for about 10 minutes. We couldn't see what he was doing because the camera didn't catch that part of the apartment, but when he came out, he had this weird, almost casual look on his face. Like he'd done this 100 times. We just sat there staring at the screen, frozen. It didn't feel real. I think I was in shock, honestly. The worst part? He didn't steal anything. At least not anything obvious. Everything was still in its place, like he'd made an effort to leave no trace. That's what made it creepier. This wasn't a robbery, it was something else. Some kind of violation I couldn't fully grasp yet. My boyfriend kept saying, "Why our place? Why the hell is he coming in if he's not taking anything?" And I didn't have an answer. I felt sick. We argued about whether we should call the police or talk to the building manager first. In the end, we did both. The building manager acted surprised when we showed him the footage, but I could tell he was trying to keep his face neutral, like he knew more than he was letting on. He said he'd handle it internally, and told us the worker would be put on suspension while they investigated. That felt like a weak response. No apology, no assurance that it wouldn't happen again. Just vague HR talk. We went to the police that same day. They took our statement and the video file, but the officers seemed more focused on whether anything was stolen or damaged. Since there wasn't any clear evidence of theft or violence, they said it might be tough to press charges. Technically, they told us, if the building gave him access, it could be considered authorized entry. After that, things got worse. A few days later, we started hearing weird noises at night, like soft clicks, almost like someone trying a key in a lock. Once, at around 3 a.m., I swear I heard footsteps just outside our door. I looked through the peephole, but didn't see anyone. My boyfriend thought I was just paranoid because of everything, but I know what I heard. We both started sleeping with a chair against the doorknob and a kitchen knife on the nightstand. I hated how that felt, like we weren't safe in our own home. I'd never felt like that before. It messes with your head. Every creak, every little sound made my heart race. I started double-checking every window and door lock before bed like I had OCD. Then one day, we came home from work and found the front door slightly open. Just a crack, but enough to feel like the floor dropped out from under me. We always locked the door. Always. My boyfriend went in first, holding his phone like a weapon, just in case. Nothing looked stolen, but things were off. Our bedroom closet door was wide open, and the little plastic storage bin under the bed had been pulled out halfway. The weirdest part, there was a bottle of water on the nightstand that neither of us had put there. A brand we don't even buy. That was the last straw. We packed a couple of bags and went to stay at his sister's place that night. Neither of us said much. We were both just trying to make sense of how this had gone so far. The next day, we went back to grab more of our stuff and decided to check the camera one last time. We'd left it recording by accident, thinking we wouldn't need it anymore. What we saw still haunts me. At around 11 a.m., that same maintenance guy entered again. He looked around like he was checking to see if anyone was home, then walked straight to our bedroom. He stayed there for almost 40 minutes. He didn't do anything super dramatic on camera, but you could see him sitting on our bed, just sitting, like he was comfortable. At one point, he pulled something out of his pocket and placed it inside my drawer. I still don't know what it was. We didn't even want to look. That was it for us. We broke the lease and moved out a week later. We never got a straight answer from the building. After we moved out, they stopped replying to our emails entirely. We tried to follow up with the police too, But unless we had proof of him taking something or harming us, they said it would be hard to build a case. We even called a lawyer, but the cost of pursuing it legally was way more than we could afford. Eventually, we just gave up. I think that's what still bothers me the most, that this guy probably still works in some other building, maybe doing the same thing, and nobody's stopping him. We changed apartments, changed locks, even changed cities, but I haven't really felt safe since. I wake up sometimes thinking I heard the sound of our old door unlocking. The thing that eats away at me is that we'll never really know what he did when he was in there. We only caught 2 of the times. What about all the other days we weren't recording? How many times was he in our space, going through our things, maybe watching us while we slept? I don't think I'll ever have answers. It just stopped. No explanation, no closure. One day we found the door open, and then it never happened again. Like it ended as suddenly as it started. But it changed something in me. Now every time I hear a soft click or creak in the night, part of me goes back to that apartment. And I don't think that feeling will ever fully go away. I used to drive for a rideshare app during the night shift. It was a way to make extra cash while avoiding the craziness of daytime traffic. Usually it was drunk people, late shift workers, or airport runs. Nothing out of the ordinary. But this one night, it stuck with me in a way I can't shake. It was around 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I got a ping from an upscale hotel downtown. The kind of place where the doormen wear those little hats and everything smells like money. When I pulled up, there was a man already waiting on the curb. He looked totally normal, mid-40s, clean suit, no luggage, just standing there like he knew exactly where he needed to be. But the weird thing was, he didn't get in right away. He just stood there, staring at my car for what felt like a whole minute, before finally opening the door and sitting in the back. I greeted him like I always do, trying to keep it casual, but he barely responded. His voice was low and, I don't know, kinda hollow. He gave me this vague instruction, told me to just head north, I'll tell you when to turn. That already set off some alarms in my head, but people can be weird, especially at that hour. I tried to shrug it off and started driving. The whole time, he didn't say a word unless I prompted him. Even then, he only gave me these short, almost robotic directions. Left here, right there. And the weirdest part was the streets were getting emptier and darker. We were heading into an industrial area that I knew was mostly abandoned at night, if not all the time. My gut started knotting up, but I told myself to stop overthinking. It's not the first time someone asked to go to a weird spot. But deep down, something felt wrong. Like the kind of wrong you feel in your stomach before your brain even catches up. At one point, we passed the last open gas station, and after that, it was just empty warehouses and those huge parking lots where semi-trucks sleep. I glanced at the rearview mirror a few times, and every single time, he was just sitting there looking straight ahead, no phone, no nothing. Not even fidgeting. I even tried making some small talk, like commenting on how dead the city was at that hour, but he didn't bite. He just mumbled something I couldn't even catch, and kept staring ahead. I swear, it felt like he wasn't really there, like he was just occupying the space, but his mind was somewhere else. Eventually, he told me to turn down this side street I'd never even noticed before. It wasn't on the main GPS, but the app recalculated, showing it led to a dead end. I mentioned that to him, but he insisted that was the place. I turned down the street, and immediately it felt off. There were no streetlights, just the glow from my headlights cutting through the dark. The buildings looked completely abandoned, windows broken, graffiti everywhere. The whole place reeked of damp concrete and old metal. My heart was pounding now. I slowed down, double-checking the address he gave me, but it didn't match any active location. When I asked him again if this was really where he wanted to be, he just leaned forward, closer to my seat, and said, almost whispering, "Yes, here." The way he said it made my skin crawl. His breath smelled old. Not like alcohol or cigarettes. More like musty, like something that had been locked in a basement for years. I stopped the car, and for a few seconds, neither of us moved. I honestly didn't want to unlock the doors. Something inside me was screaming to just floor it and get the hell out of there, but at the same time, I didn't want to provoke him. He slowly opened the door himself and stepped out without saying another word. I watched him walk toward one of the buildings, the one that looked the most wrecked. No lights, no signs of life, just this guy in an expensive suit disappearing into the shadows like he belonged there. I sat there, engine running, completely frozen. I don't know why, but something told me to wait, like part of me needed to see what the hell he was doing. I guess curiosity won over common sense. That's when things got even weirder. I saw him stop right in front of a metal door that looked welded shut. He didn't knock, didn't try to open it, just stood there facing it. And then, and I swear on everything I have, the door opened by itself. No one was on the other side, at least no one I could see. Just darkness. He stepped inside like it was the most normal thing in the world, and the door closed behind him, with this loud metal bang that echoed down the empty street. I sat there, staring at the door, waiting for, I don't even know what. Part of me thought someone else might come out. But nothing happened. It was just me, my car, and this heavy silence that made the air feel thick. I must have sat there for at least 5 minutes, maybe more, just gripping the steering wheel like it was going to anchor me to reality. My brain kept trying to find a logical explanation for what I'd just seen. Maybe it was some kind of private club or some underground deal going on in that dump. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize, nothing made sense. The way the door opened, the way he acted, the location, none of it added up. Eventually, I snapped myself out of it and decided to get the hell out of there. But as I put the car in reverse, I noticed something in my rearview mirror that made my stomach drop. There were footprints behind the car. Wet footprints, as if someone had been walking barefoot in the rain. But it hadn't rained that night, and the prints were leading away from my car, like someone had been standing right behind me the whole time. That was it for me. I hit the gas and sped out of that street as fast as I could, not even caring about the potholes or the fact that my app was still technically running the ride. I didn't even end the trip until I got back to a lit area with other people around. When I finally stopped at a 24-hour diner, I tried to pull myself together, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I checked the app again, and that's when I saw the final cherry on top. The ride had auto-ended itself. The address listed was just a string of zeros, like no actual place existed. I even tried to search the area on Google Maps, but that specific street didn't show up. It was like it disappeared. I kept refreshing, thinking maybe my phone was glitching, but no matter what I did, that place wasn't there anymore. For the rest of that night, I couldn't bring myself to pick up another ride. I just sat there at the diner, staring at my coffee, feeling like I'd brought something back with me. I kept checking my back seat, convinced that if I looked long enough, I'd see him sitting there again. I know it sounds stupid, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone in that car, even after I'd left him behind. When I finally worked up the courage to drive home, I took the longest, most well-lit route I could find. Even then, I kept the windows down, like I needed the outside air to remind me I was still in the real world. When I parked at my building, I double-checked all the locks and even looked under the seats. Of course, nothing was there. But I swear, the car still smelled faintly of that musty old odor, like he'd left a part of himself behind. The next day, I tried talking about it with a couple of other rideshare drivers I knew, but I couldn't even get the words out without sounding crazy. Who the hell would believe me? A guy in a perfect suit, walking into an abandoned building, doors opening by themselves, disappearing streets. It sounds like something out of a bad horror movie, but I know what I saw. And the thing is, I tried going back there during the day, just to prove to myself that it was nothing, that maybe I was overtired or imagining things. But I couldn't find the street. I drove around that whole industrial area for over an hour, and nothing looked like it did that night. It was like that street only existed in the dark, or worse, like it existed just for me that one night. After that night, I stopped doing the night shifts for a while. I told myself it was just to clear my head, but honestly, I was scared shitless. I kept thinking about that guy's face. The more I replayed it in my head, the more I realized there was something off about him. His skin looked too smooth, almost like plastic, and his eyes, I don't even know how to describe it. They looked empty, like he was looking through me the whole time, not at me. Like he wasn't really seeing me. That detail kept haunting me, because it didn't hit me right away. It was only later, when I tried to remember what color his eyes were, that I realized. I couldn't. They were just these dark holes. And that door, no handle, no light, no sign that it even should have opened, let alone by itself. Even now, months later, I still can't explain it. I tried searching online, thinking maybe it was some weird art installation, or maybe the building was owned by some secret club or whatever. Nothing. I even posted on a local forum asking if anyone knew about that area, or had weird experiences around there. No replies, not even trolls making fun of me. Just silence. Like no one wanted to talk about it. And the worst part, sometimes when I drive late at night, even if I'm nowhere near that area, my GPS glitches out for a second, and I swear, I see that same dead-end street pop up for a split second before correcting itself. It always makes my blood run cold. I don't do night shifts anymore. I can't, because part of me is terrified that one day I'll get another ping, and it'll be him again. What gets me the most is how normal it all seemed at first. I mean, if you saw that guy at a hotel lobby or walking down the street in daylight, you wouldn't think twice. He looked like every other businessman you see downtown. That's what messes with your head. You expect weird people to look weird, you know? But this guy, he blended in too perfectly, like he was pretending to be human, and almost got it right, but not quite. There was this stiffness in the way he moved, like someone wearing a suit that didn't fit them, even though it looked perfect from the outside. Every now and then, I still wake up at night thinking I hear that metal door slamming shut again. It's like my brain keeps replaying that sound, trying to make sense of it, but I know it never will. I wish I had some explanation, but I don't. That night just happened, and then it was over, as if none of it was ever supposed to leave that street. It's the not knowing that eats at you. You keep trying to tell yourself it was nothing, some guy pulling a prank, or maybe I was overtired and imagined parts of it. But no matter how much I tell myself that, deep down, I know that street was never meant to be found. It appeared for him, and I was just the idiot who showed up to give him a ride. I still have the ride record saved in the app history, and every now and then I open it just to remind myself it was real. But all it shows is that blank location and the timestamp, 3:41 a.m. And after that, nothing. I wasn't even planning to go to that yard sale. It was one of those last-minute decisions because my mom wanted to check out some antiques for the living room. As usual, I was bored out of my mind just scrolling through my phone until I spotted this old camcorder sitting on a table. It was one of those clunky models from the early 2000s, but something about it caught my attention. The guy selling it looked like he didn't care much, just waved me off when I asked if it worked. $5, take it or leave it, he said. $5? I figured why not? Maybe I could use it for some artsy school project or something. Later that afternoon, I decided to mess around with it. I found the right cables, plugged it into the TV in our basement, and hit play. There was already a tape inside. At first, it was nothing special, just shaky footage of someone walking through a living room. But then I noticed something odd. This wasn't a home video. It looked more like surveillance footage, like the kind you'd see from a hidden camera. There was no one in the shot, just an empty room. The quality was grainy, but I could make out details: an old armchair, a coffee table, and a clock on the wall. The clock was ticking, but the audio was distorted, so it sounded almost like whispering. My chest tightened a little. I told myself it was probably just some weird recording the previous owner forgot to erase. I fast-forwarded the tape to see if anything else was on it, and that's when things started to feel wrong. The next clip was in a different room, maybe a kitchen. Again, it was empty, but it didn't feel like it was supposed to be. There was this faint sound in the background, like a low hum, but I couldn't tell if it was coming from the tape or the camcorder itself. The camera angle was strange too, like it was hidden on top of a cabinet, pointing down toward the table. It hit me then. This wasn't someone filming their house for fun. This was surveillance footage. Someone had been secretly recording a home. I paused the tape, suddenly uneasy. Part of me wanted to just stop there, eject the tape, and forget about it. But curiosity got the better of me. I hit play again. The next few minutes showed nothing but still rooms, different angles of what was clearly the same house. But then, in one of the clips, a figure appeared. It was a man. He walked into the frame, stood still for a moment, then turned directly toward the camera. My stomach dropped. He didn't look startled, like he had just noticed the camera. It was worse. He looked aware, like he knew someone would be watching this later. And he smiled. I froze. That smile wasn't friendly. It was slow, deliberate, like he was letting me in on some sick joke that I didn't understand. He didn't move for a while, just kept staring into the lens. I don't know how long I sat there, holding my breath, but eventually he walked out of the frame. I thought it was over until the camera view switched, like someone had changed the channel. Now it was a bedroom. The same man was sitting on the edge of a bed, his back to the camera. He wasn't doing anything, just sitting there, staring at the floor. His hands were folded neatly in his lap, but something about the way his shoulders moved, slow and uneven, made me think he was whispering to himself. The audio was still distorted, but every now and then, I thought I could hear faint words, like fragments of a conversation. I leaned closer, trying to make out what he was saying, when the screen glitched. For a split second, it went black. When the footage came back, the man was gone. But now the camera was no longer still. It was shaking, moving as if someone was holding it. The angle jerked around the room, landing briefly on the closet door, the nightstand, the bed. Then it started moving toward the window. My palms started to sweat because I realized whoever was holding the camera wasn't recording the room. They were recording the view outside. The camera zoomed in on the window, and I could see a dark street below, dimly lit by a flickering streetlight. It wasn't just random footage anymore. It felt purposeful, like someone was watching for something or someone. The camera lingered on the streetlight for a moment before shifting suddenly to a house across the road. My throat tightened when I saw the outline of another person, standing completely still on the porch of that house. They weren't moving, not even a little. The camera stayed on them, almost like it was waiting for me to notice. Then just as abruptly, it panned back inside the room, back to the bed, and stopped. I don't know what I was expecting at this point, but I sure as hell wasn't ready for what came next. The screen went dark again, but this time, there was no glitch. It stayed black for a few seconds. I almost reached for the remote, thinking maybe the tape had ended. That's when the whispering started. This time, it wasn't faint or distorted. It was loud and clear, like someone was speaking directly into a microphone. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was low, urgent, almost angry. Then out of nowhere, the screen lit up, showing a face so close to the lens that it was nothing but eyes and teeth. It wasn't the man from before. This face was different, gaunt and pale, with wide, unblinking eyes. It stared right at me, and then it smiled. I jumped so hard I nearly knocked the camcorder off the table. The face stayed on the screen for a second, maybe two, before the tape cut to static. My heart was pounding, and my hands were shaking so bad I could barely hit the stop button. For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the black screen, trying to process what I had just seen. But the worst part, I could still hear the whispering. At first, I thought it was just in my head, like an echo of what I'd heard on the tape. Then I realized it was coming from the camcorder itself. Even though the TV was off and the tape had stopped, the camcorder was still making that sound. I panicked and yanked the plug out of the wall, but the whispering didn't stop. It grew louder, like it was inside the room with me. I felt a cold breeze, even though the basement was always stuffy, and I swear the hairs on my arms stood straight up. That's when I heard something else, a creak, soft but distinct, coming from the stairs behind me. I whipped around, expecting to see my mom or maybe the cat, but the stairs were empty. The whispering suddenly stopped, and the silence was somehow worse. My gut told me not to look back at the camcorder, but I couldn't help it. When I did, the screen was on again, even though the power cord was lying on the floor. And there it was, the bedroom from the tape. Only this time, it wasn't empty. Someone was standing in the doorway, and they were looking straight into the camera. I felt my chest tighten, like I couldn't get enough air. The figure didn't move, just stood there, staring into the lens. Their face was blurry, almost like the camera couldn't focus on them, but I could tell it wasn't the man or the face from earlier. This was someone new. Their head tilted slightly, like they were listening to something I couldn't hear. Then, without warning, they stepped closer. The camera jittered, almost like it was reacting to them, and the screen flashed white for a split second. When the image returned, the person was gone, but the doorway was still there, wide open, and something about the darkness beyond it felt alive. I wanted to run upstairs, to grab my mom or my phone or anything to get me out of that basement, but my body wouldn't cooperate. It was like I was glued to the chair, forced to keep watching. The screen started glitching again, flashes of static and distorted images filling the room with an eerie, flickering light. One of the frames caught my attention. Just for a moment, I saw my own living room. It was unmistakable. The same couch, the same crooked painting above the fireplace. My stomach dropped. This wasn't footage from some random house. Somehow it was here, my house. And then just as suddenly, the screen went black. I didn't move for what felt like an eternity. The basement was completely silent, except for the faint hum of the TV. My mind was racing, trying to convince myself that I was imagining things, that it was all just some freaky coincidence. But deep down, I knew better. I forced myself to get up, my legs trembling so badly I almost fell over. I needed to check the living room, just to prove to myself that everything was fine, that the camcorder was playing tricks on me. Slowly, I climbed the stairs, every creak of the wood making my pulse race faster. When I reached the top, the house was eerily quiet. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. I turned the corner into the living room, and my heart stopped. The couch was there, the painting was there, but something else was too. The front door was wide open. Not just unlocked, wide open like someone had walked in or out. I rushed to close it, locking both the deadbolt and the chain, and checked the windows, my mind racing with possibilities. Maybe I had forgotten to lock it earlier. Maybe the wind. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. As I turned back toward the stairs, I froze. Sitting on the coffee table was the camcorder. I had left it in the basement. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at that camcorder. My head was screaming at me to run, to just grab my phone and get out of the house. But my legs wouldn't move. It felt like the air in the room was pressing down on me, heavy and suffocating. My hands were shaking as I reached out to pick it up. It felt ice cold, even though the basement had been warm when I left it. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. At first, there was nothing but static. Then slowly an image appeared. It wasn't a room this time. It was my face. I stumbled back, almost dropping the camcorder. The footage wasn't live, it couldn't be, but there I was staring back at myself from just seconds earlier, frozen in the exact same position I'd been standing in. The sound of my own shaky breathing filled the room, louder than it should have been, echoing like I was inside a tunnel. Then I saw it, movement behind me in the recording. A shadow just barely visible, crossing the frame. My blood ran cold as I realized it wasn't just a shadow. It was a person, standing behind me in the footage. And before I could turn to see if they were still there, the screen went black again, leaving me staring at my own terrified reflection. I whipped around so fast I nearly lost my balance, expecting to come face to face with whoever, or whatever, was behind me. But there was nothing. Just the empty room, the locked door, and the dim light from the hallway. I tried to tell myself it was over, that the footage was just some leftover tape playing tricks on me. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The air felt heavier, colder, like something was pressing in from all sides. I backed away from the coffee table, clutching the camcorder like it was the only thing grounding me. And then I heard it, a soft, deliberate knock. Not at the door, but at the window. My stomach dropped. The curtains were drawn, but I could see the faint outline of a figure on the other side. They weren't moving, just standing there. My throat went dry as I edged toward the window, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out everything else. With every step, my instincts screamed at me to stop, to turn around and run. But I had to see. I had to know. When I finally gathered the courage to pull back the curtain, the window was empty. No one was there. I stood there for a moment, staring at my own reflection, trying to convince myself that I was imagining things. And then the knocking started again. This time, it was coming from the basement. My body froze. The knocking was slow, deliberate, like someone was waiting for an answer. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. All I could do was take a step back, then another. Each knock felt heavier, more insistent, like it was echoing straight into my chest. I thought about calling for my mom, but some part of me didn't want her to know, didn't want to pull anyone else into this. I stared down the hallway, toward the basement door, half expecting it to swing open on its own. And then, just like that, the knocking stopped. The silence that followed was worse. It wasn't just quiet, it was waiting. I stood there, barely breathing, until I couldn't take it anymore. I had to end this. I grabbed the camcorder, still cold in my hand, and forced myself to walk toward the basement. Each step felt like I was descending into something I couldn't understand, like the house itself was holding its breath. When I opened the basement door, I was met with total darkness. Not just the absence of light, darkness, thick and absolute. I flicked the switch, but nothing happened. The lights were dead. Still, I moved forward, the camcorder's tiny screen casting a faint, flickering glow ahead of me. The whispering had returned. It wasn't coming from the camcorder anymore. It was everywhere. As I reached the bottom step, I saw it. The TV was on, showing the bedroom from the tape. But the figure in the doorway wasn't just standing there anymore. It was closer now, halfway into the room. And behind him, I saw more shadows. Shapes. Faces. All watching. The camcorder buzzed in my hand, and the screen changed again, this time showing me walking into the basement, exactly as I was now. Only in the footage, I wasn't alone. There was something behind me. Something tall, with a face like static, shifting and warping with every frame. I turned, but nothing was there. And that's when I understood. The footage didn't show the past. It showed what was about to happen. I dropped the camcorder and ran. Up the stairs, through the hallway, back into the living room, barely aware of my own screaming footsteps. I didn't stop until I was outside, barefoot on the lawn, gasping for breath. The house stood silently behind me, lights off, door wide open. The camcorder never turned up again. Not in the basement. Not on the coffee table. It was just gone. My mom thought I had a nightmare. I let her believe that. I never told her what I saw. I never watched another tape, and I never went back into the basement. But sometimes late at night, I swear I still hear it. A soft knock, not at the door, but from under the floor,